Ooh, the White Wolves are coming. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Star Wars. No, I know. I would have never, if somebody said to me, hey, the White Wolves are coming, I would have never thought of Star Wars at least 10, 20 years ago. But now, yeah, that's a thing. Loth Wolves or whatever that they ended up calling them. Well, anyway, we'll see what comes of all of that. But yeah, here for your October Star Wars update, the last Patreon episode of October, and then we've got, believe me, this action is not going to stop. But it is your Star Wars update. I'll tell you, starting it right off, of course, Rebels Season 4 started this month, and they have been doubling down, literally, on the amount of episodes per Monday, which Monday is kind of a new day for Rebels, that they've been putting out. They've been doing like 2 episodes per day, and it's made sense because the past couple weeks not this past Monday, but the past couple weeks, they were literally 2-parters, and so to just let them ride was pretty cool. This week, at this past Monday, we ended up with 2 just singles episodes that weren't exactly relative, but interesting. Anyway, before I get into those, I do want to say, so I started just today, October 31st, 2017, the new Luke Skywalker book was released. The Legends of Luke Skywalker by Ken Liu, and I did start listening to it today, and so far so good. It's another one like another book that we're going to talk about a little bit later, where it's a bunch of little stories being told. We're also going to review in this Star Wars update, we're going to cover the new trailers that have come out, and we'll talk about a book that is, I think, kind of controversial. And that book is A Certain Point of View is the title of the book. Or from a certain point of view, I should say. And it's by a bunch of authors. It's a ton of short stories that all center around A New Hope. Some of it takes a little bit before, some of it takes a little bit after. There's a lot to talk about with it, because again, every book that comes out now pretty much is canon, and it has broader, like everything that was talked about in From a Certain Point of View has bearing on what you saw in A New Hope. And now, honestly, like, you can watch that movie. I mean, you thought Rogue One gave you new eyes to watch A New Hope with. This book will give you whole new eyes, and, well, we'll talk about whether it's good or bad. But anyway, like I was saying, I did start reading the Legend of Luke Skywalker by Ken Liu, or start listening to it, really. Got pretty deep into it, and man, there is some fun shit in this. I mean, if you love Luke Skywalker, and who doesn't? I mean, he is and he isn't my favorite Star Wars character, right? Certainly, he holds title for, probably my favorite Star Wars moment, where in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor is saying, come to the dark side, and Luke just tosses his lightsaber away and says, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and just an amazing, powerful moment in cinematic history. But anyway, so yeah, Legends of Luke Skywalker, so far, I'm saying it's a pickup. It's worth reading. It's part of the journey to the Last Jedi series, which is, supposed to get you hyped up for the movie coming out in December, of course, which I'm already all ticketed up for, day early, baby. But I'm not seeing anything that necessarily says it needs to, like, that to understand what gets talked about in The Last Jedi, that you need to read this book. You could read it after, I'm sure, but yeah, so far very enjoyable. So anyway, why don't we start off? Let's talk about Rebels, since that's definitely the biggest news, and really the thing I can talk about positively without reservation. I don't know what it is about television shows and a season 4, regardless of how long, certain seasons are, whether a season has 11 episodes or whether a season has 26 episodes, like television shows used to when they were more episodic. Though Rebels is fairly episodic. In fact, the 2-parters we're getting in season 4, I mean, that's kind of a rarity for Rebels. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but as soon as, I mean, you can just think of so many shows where when it suddenly hits season 4, not to say that it was bad beforehand, because certainly Rebels, I think, has been fairly solid since season 1. But once you hit season 4, oh shit, business picks up, and it's a pity, because a lot of shows, will end in season 4, which is true for Rebels. This is our last season that we're getting here. I mean, you think of the other great shows that ended in season 4. I guess technically Spartacus ended in season 4. Of course, one of the worst shows in history, maybe the worst show in history, I mean, it's pretty close, is the new Battlestar Galactica from 2005. Of course, season 4 is where that show fell apart. I mean, but that just, and it's when it ended, but I mean, that just kind of goes to show why it's so terrible. I mean, as to where really great shows, business picks up in season 4. If you're a really, really shitty show like Battlestar Galactica was, the new one, the old one's fucking amazing, but from 78, but the new one, I mean, you got to be a really, really terrible show to suck, to be out of steam at season 4. That's when you're supposed to be picking up stride. But obviously that didn't happen. I mean, they were losing steam in season 3. I mean, it's so bad. But we're not here to talk about that show, because why? We're here to talk about Star Wars. So, but I mean, think of the great shows that picked up stride in season 4. You think of a lot of the Star Treks. You think of, The Next Generation. I mean, that's when you're just coming off of Best of Both Worlds from season 3. You think of Enterprise, where season 4, I mean, made the show. I mean, it was a great show outside of that, but that really, I mean, that fucking delivered, season 4. I mean, I could think of a ton of shows or even like Highlander, the series, Stargate kind of always had its thing going. But there's a bunch where season 4 suddenly says, all right, it's time to get serious. Like this is going to get real right now. And this is what's happening, I think, with Rebels. So not to say that there aren't, little nitpicks that I could make about the episodes, but it's a pity that the show's ending now. In fact, just quick, I mean, another show where season 4 was when it started to really pick up, though maybe season 3 a little more accurately, but Clone Wars, Rebels prequel show effectively, season 4 is when shit started to get really, really wild. What is that? When Maul came in and everything, and then you end up with the big Mandalorian wars in season 5, which you are seeing the after, with the return of Bo-Katan, who is voice acted by the one good thing about the Battlestar Galactica show that I was just ripping on, which is Katie Sackhoff as Starbuck. But she plays Bo-Katan, this incredible Mandalorian leader, sister to Duchess Satine, who was the head of the more pacifist movement of Mandalore, which was an awesome. I loved that whole storyline in Star Wars, because they've really, Disney particularly, since they've taken over, has really kind of changed, I think, what the original intent that we got and the original gist that we got about Alderaan, where Alderaan was just, there was no weapons, no soldiers, no armies, it was very pacifist. But, when you read, which we reviewed in last month's Star Wars update, when you read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which was a tremendous book, one of the best Star Wars books of the new canon. I don't think we're ever going to not call it the new canon, by the way. Like, it's just always going to be called that. But in that, you find out, oh no, they go through whole warrior training, effectively. I mean, the whole thing. So, so I like the fact that at least for a little while, there was a genuinely pacifist planet. And then I know there's others, but there was a big one, a big name one, in the Star Wars universe, and that was Mandalore. And, season 4 of Rebels picks right up with, how the Mandalorians are dealing with, which is what they were hinting at the end of season 3, how they're dealing with the Empire and how they're dealing with, all of these different factions that are in charge of, that are vying for, ultimate control in the Mandalorian, I guess, clan system. And this was coming to head with the first two episodes of season 4. You had Heroes of Mandalore Part 1 and 2, and it was I thought they were awesome. I thought that these were really, really solid episodes. Spoiler alerts. I'll just put that out there now. I'm going to run rampant with them. So, and it really felt like with Heroes of Mandalore, with the amount of, frankly, with the raw amount of death and people dying and kind of the visceral way that they were dying, due to the weapon that Sabine Wren had. You find out finally her history. We'll talk about that in a second. But the way that they were dying and everything, I mean, like, it's like, okay, yeah, no. So the kids that started watching this show when they were 9, all right, they're about 13 or something like that, or maybe, up those ages a little bit. They're teenagers now. They, I'm sure their thinking is that this can all be handled, by them. So, I mean, and this is the nature of business. I mean, lots, if you have like a long running franchise, this is something people do all the time. It's very popular in the wrestling world, where you do kind of a reset button where you start to appeal to the kids. And then that way in 5-6 years, you are making money off of, people that just entered the workforce, that being teenagers or young adults or whatever. So I get it. But regardless, anyway, this is working. This is really, really working. And I want to talk, I can't wait to talk about the next 2 episodes here. But I do want to say, so kind of the one nitpick I have is this weapon that can destroy and attracts, the weapon is attracted to the very specific Mandalorian armor. That supposedly when Sabine was like, I guess 10 or 11, because when the show started, we were told about this, that the Empire made her do terrible things. She was 16 when the show started. Now she's 20, thankfully. But it's kind of weird. Like I've never really understood that storyline. And part of me really has a hard time imagining that was the original idea. I don't know. I get the sense that maybe, so when Rebels started, this was part of the rebooting of the canon this is the new canon. This was the start of that. They had to know that they were going to be working on stories that had to deal with the Death Star a lot more. They really had to know. And it's not just because, I know the story about how John Knoll just had an idea. Hey, I'd like to talk about how they got the Death Star plans and all this stuff. That'd be kind of fun. And he said it to Kathleen Kennedy, and Kathleen said, all right, let's make a movie. I understand how that meeting went down, but the raw amount of storylines and stories and novels and comics and whatever else pushing and centering around, the Death Star and getting to the point of where, finally the Death Star is revealed. Again, as I've said in past Star Wars updates, I applaud it for, making A New Hope, which is not the best Star Wars film, shall we say. I applaud it for making that film a lot more dangerous. But, at the same time, they had to have been planning this for a long time. That, okay, we want stories to be pointing at the Death Star, at the creation of the Death Star at all times, which is a good idea because, you're trying to bridge the prequel trilogy and the new, and, the original trilogy, of course. So I think that originally Sabine Wren was supposed to be probably some kind of child genius that helped develop the Death Star. I don't know. This weapon, that's the only part that's weak. It all plays out fine, so it's not really a complaint, but I really feel like the weapon that she designed, where it's designed to attack Mandalorian armor, it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't sit right. In Rogue One, we get hints that the Empire has tons of different super weapons that they develop. So it's not out of place, but it just seems odd. It seems like this is the big history that you're talking about. I don't know. It didn't seem right. But anyway, the episodes themselves were so cool. You definitely got a much more grown up Star Wars, which I can appreciate, even though I don't mind if it's a little kiddish at times, but I appreciated, getting that grown up feel, which sets the tone. And that's the most important thing I think that Heroes of Mandalore does, is that, well, we get Bo-Katan back, which is great, just a tremendous character, but then it does set the tone for the rest of the season. Because then we go right into, and it wraps up season 3 fairly nicely as well, and we get to have Sabine back because now she's out of her role as, being the queen of the Mandalorians, effectively. But then we get into the next 2-parter, which takes place right after, which is In the Name of the Rebellion, parts 1 and 2. And I got to tell you, this is somehow, this 1 hour, actually it's more like 40 minutes, okay, because the episodes, they clock in at about 22 minutes, so maybe 45 minutes. Somehow, these 2 episodes, this is the best Star Wars, the most, the thing that feels the most like Star Wars since Return of the Jedi. I mean it. I don't know how they did this. I know some of the listeners are going to think I'm nuts. Some of the big Star Wars fans that are listening, and that's fine. I know you think I'm nuts for other things too, but I think this was better than Rogue One. In the Name of the Rebellion, I could watch this over and over and over again. It was so well done. It was so funny. And that might be the most impressive part. And that continued into this past Monday. The 2 episodes that played there is this humor. And from the preview of the episode coming out next week, it looks like the the well-placed and genuinely laugh-out-loud funny moments are continuing. And I think that's anytime science fiction can really pull off laughter. I know, it's space opera, it's space fantasy, blah, blah. Yeah, I get it, okay? But if you have a science fiction space or area in a bookstore, where do you put the Star Wars books? Yeah, you put them in the science fiction section, so shut up. So anyway, yeah, I mean, this was, anytime you can have genuinely funny science fiction, I mean, that's a major feat in my opinion. And they delivered. And it was like, I mean, when the stormtroopers are kind of rolling off of the satellite dish, and they're just like, I mean, like it just worked. And there were a lot of funny lines that, there's great banter between Sabine and Ezra, which I never thought I'd be able to say. Yeah, I was so amazed. And not only that, I mean, just opening up, they're on Yavin 4. That made for a nice touch, certainly. Of course, you got that in Rogue One as well, which definitely helped out with Rogue One's validity. But you got that. And then, you have Hera flying in the Y-Wings, which Hera is so awesome. And in fact, they just put out some of those, some more of the Forces of Destiny animated shorts. There's a whole new series of them now, which I won't be reviewing in this one. I'll get to that in November, because November looks like it might be a little bit of a slower month. But as far as Star Wars news goes. So I'm going to save a lot of comic reviews for November as well. But in one of those, she's in Return of the Jedi, and she meets, she hangs with Han Solo effectively. So, a lot of people are wondering, hey, in season 4 Rebels, are we going to get, how many people are dying? Is Kanan going to be dying? Which seems to be a foregone conclusion. What's going to happen? Well, one thing we do know is that General Syndulla, or Hera, that she is going to be very much alive, come Return of the Jedi. So, which is interesting. But you get to see her badass piloting skills, and she has really, because there was, I feel like through much of season 2 and season 3 particularly, not season 1 really, but season 2 and season 3, she was kind of just aboard the Ghost and wouldn't get on the ground or anything. And now she's in full stride. In fact, in the episodes from this past Monday, I mean, she was looking, downright sexy. Like they had her when they're on Lothal, they had her in this different outfit and everything, and looked incredible. But yeah, and what was really great. So in the Name of the Rebellion, you get more of this background as to what's the beef in Rogue One between the Rebel Alliance that we know and Saw Gerrera's group, right? And Saw Gerrera delivered. I mean, like that character was also had some very funny moments, even though he was almost like comical. Even though like the delivery was almost too over the top and poetic, but it worked. And there was some very interesting philosophical debates going on in Mon Mothma. There's a point where they're on Yavin 4, and Mon Mothma there's a hologram that gets projected, huge hologram of Saw Gerrera, and he's arguing with with Mon Mothma, and Mon Mothma just like gets right in his face, and it's great because he responds. He says, "There it is." He says, "That's the passion that we need. You got to keep that going." But like she gets mad, saying like how you fight this war is almost more important than the war and all this stuff. I mean, like it was a really, really great back and forth, and Mon Mothma was awesome in that. And that's a character that they have done. I'll give Disney this, maybe the best thing that the most solid thing that Disney has done so far is they have made Mon Mothma a character to be reckoned with. As to before, especially with the original trilogy, you're wondering, all right, so wait, why is she the leader of the rebellion? Like, what's the big deal here? As to where, with the works of Filoni throughout the Clone Wars and, of course, in Rebels, and then, what Claudia Gray has done with the character in the novels, and so on, and then, of course, her performance in Rogue One, you get it now. Like, it really, really makes sense what's happening there. And, in fact, there's a scene, or there's a short story that has to do with her in the book we're going to talk about from a certain point of view, where you get even more of that badassery from her, that almost pacifistic badassery, which is a very real thing, and it's hard to write, and I am always in awe when people can really deliver that. So very, really, really pleased with that. But yeah, just I don't know, the soundtrack cues, the kind of the space battles, the mission that they were on, everything that was happening in in this two-parter, In the Name of the Rebellion, it just felt like perfect Star Wars. I was so impressed by that. And it's just another thing that leads to, hey, if Filoni ends up becoming, effectively the king of Star Wars, if he's the heir, the true heir to George Lucas, not to say Kathleen Kennedy's doing a bad job, though I might talk about Kennedy versus Feige, later on in this. But Filoni's got it. He understands, and I am nothing but impressed, especially with the two-parter In the Name of the Rebellion. Again, it's almost impossible to describe. It just felt like Star Wars. It felt like Return of the Jedi, and it felt like A New Hope at the same time. It fired on all cylinders as far as that goes. I was very, very pleased with that. Okay, so. Let's see. This week's episodes, not as impressive, admittedly, as In the Name of the Rebellion. I think, and they weren't two-parters, though they did play two of them. There was The Occupation, which was episode 5, and then there was Flight of the Defender. I think this was very smart of them to do another doubleheader, because The Occupation, I didn't think was like that. That felt, compared to what we have, the 4 episodes we had gotten previous in season 4, felt pretty weak, in my opinion. But Flight of the Defender business picked right back up. Of course, Thrawn shows up, and once Thrawn is, on the screen, as it were, everything's going to be gold. The guy just steals the whole show. And like I said in a recent Sovereign Tech Prime episode, I think it was in a Sovereign Tech Prime episode, and I don't even remember exactly what. I was reviewing the new Batman animated movie, Batman versus Two-Face, and I said that I came to the realization that, and I don't know why it took me so long. I don't know why it took me 36 years to come to this realization, but I came to the realization that really the characters I like aren't the good guys or the bad guys or the anti-heroes or whatever. It's pretty much whoever is Sherlock Holmes. And it seems like most franchises have that kind of character, or at least the great ones will end up with that kind of character. And so in the case of with Star Wars, it's absolutely Thrawn. Thrawn is just Sherlock Holmes. That's all he is. And that's not, that's not saying, that's not belittling him. That's giving the biggest compliment you could possibly give a fictional character. So The Occupation, not a whole lot to talk about there. They have to reintroduce you to what exactly is happening on Lothal and all that. And it's, it's a mess. It's a fucking mess. And one of the things that I'll talk about that were also in The Name of the Rebellion, in that two-parter, there's been a lot more judicious use of the Death Troopers. Now, if you watch Rebel Recon, which is kind of the after show, effectively, for Star Wars Rebels, which these after shows are all the rage. The nice thing about Rebels Recon is that it actually explains like little finer points that happens within each episode of Star Wars Rebels. Pablo Hidalgo will explain things, or somebody on the production team, Filoni, whoever. And Pablo Hidalgo specifically answered that, Death Troopers, they don't have to speak in this weird garbled, language, which is like an encrypted language, which I thought was cool in Rogue One. I thought that was a very clever idea. But they can talk in basic, they can talk in English with people that needed it. And that was another cool thing. In The Name of the Rebellion, there was a female Death Trooper. They made it very clear that was a female Commander Death Trooper, which I think is pretty cool. Now, when you get the Death Trooper in, I guess it would be in the Occupation, not Flight of the Defender, you kind of get the sense that these Death Troopers can be like commanders that, that lead like entire Stormtrooper squads. I kind of feel like that cheapens them a bit. It's one thing if they're like special agents, like the commander in the Name of the Rebellion, but yeah, I hope they don't go too far using these things, because they should be it should be a special event. It's like when an Imperial Royal Guard shows up. It's like, oh shit, what's going on here? Like it should take your breath away a little bit when they kind of appear. So I'm a little worried that they're getting overused. Again, The Occupation needed something. I guess that gave it its sense of severity, but Flight of the Defender. So one of the cool things about Flight of the Defender is that we get a new TIE Defender, which is one of the new ships. Now, I have applauded the inclusion of the TIE Defender in Star Wars Rebels all the way for a myriad reasons. One is that Star Wars TIE Fighter, which is where the original TIE Defender came from, which was a PC game from 1994, is widely regarded one of, if not the greatest game of all time. In fact, I'll give it that title as being the greatest game of all time. Doesn't matter if it's Star Wars or not. I mean, that helps, but there's just incredible, wonderful mechanics, gameplay mechanics. It's an amazing space sim. In fact, I really think, in my personal opinion, the reason that we don't really have so many space sims today, like Starfighter sims today, regardless of franchise. I mean, there's like Evacron Mercenary and Evacron Legacy and some of those other ones out there. I know, I play them, but the reason it's not like the show-stopping genre that it was in the 90s, I don't think Wing Commander killed it. I think what happened is it's just that TIE Fighter, TIE Fighter, it's perfection. You can't get any better. Like, I mean, it just, it's just the game that people just kept on playing, well, okay, these other ones are, I mean, because I remember when I made a friend, who would be my best friend for many, many years, over a decade, in high school, he's the one that got me into Wing Commander, and I love Wing Commander. That series is amazing. I've even told Mark Hamill, I said, hey, Luke Skywalker is great, but you're always going to be the heart of the tiger to me, baby. And he loved it. So, I get it. Okay. Like, I love Wing Commander, but I always told, my buddy, I said, look, when I play Wing Commander compared to TIE Fighter, it feels like I'm flying a desk or something. Like it doesn't have that same visceral feel. I don't feel the same excitement. It's not there for me. And I think that just, and I'm not the only one that said this. I've seen professional reviewers, say similar things, that TIE Fighter just perfected the model. And there's been almost no point to making another game since, no matter how hard you try. And you could do I don't know why. You could do TIE Fighter 2 and make it almost the same fucking game. Just give us a bunch of new missions. Fuck yeah, I'll buy. I'm in. $50 right now. Absolutely. So, and if I got to get a new computer to play that bitch, you better believe it. I'm on it. But anyway, so the TIE Defender getting its due in the new canon, I think is much deserved, and it's very welcome. And it fits in with Thrawn, what we knew of Thrawn from the old canon, from the expanded universe, from like Heir to the Empire and all that. Because in that, one of the things he does is he takes the Empire's remaining TIE interceptors, and he starts putting shield generators in all of them. Because and he makes it very clear. He says the Emperor was an idiot for not developing these kinds of mass weapons that had defensive capabilities. It's one of the reasons that the rebels won. And so him being behind the project of the TIE Defender, it really fits the bill. And now this new TIE Defender, the TIE Defender Elite, which is also cool because it has the red paint scheme, which that was something that was always played with in the expanded universe, was the idea of that the Imperial Royal Guards, which wear their red garb, that they flew TIE Defenders. And so it's sort of fit in with that. And that was really cool. To have a super TIE Defender, fuck yeah, baby. I mean, like, this is the kind of stuff that makes technical manuals so exciting. So I thought that was a nice addition. That alone, and the way that it could fly, and it could do like that whole stop move, like that where it could stop, and then the other TIE Fighters would go out in front of it, and then it could blast them from behind. That's classic 1978 really good Battlestar Galactica, the original one. That was great. That was a nice touch. So much that was going on in that episode, I thought was a lot of fun. Once again, it was very funny. The introduction of the White Wolf, well, I know there's theories that that's Ahsoka or something like that. I don't know. Well, in Rebels Recon for the episode that the Wolf appears in Flight of the Defender or whatever, Filoni says that, he says that they are like a mystical beast of some kind, like they have a tie-in with the Force and all this, which, okay, whatever. We'll see how that ends up taking shape. I get a little annoyed by that because I like the fact that with the prequels, George Lucas was really trying to make the Star Wars universe very scientific and get away from the mysticism, which had been bastardizing his work for quite some time. Or had been a bastardized part, I should say, of his work for some time. As soon as Disney took over, then you got that weird season 6 of Clone Wars. I mean, Filoni seems to have no problem with dipping into the mysticism. I don't need it, but whatever. That's just me. That's just a griping Star Wars fan, but I'll accept it because again, everything else about this stuff is just so much fun, so solid, so cool, which is incredibly important for any kind of franchise. So season 4 of Rebels is off to a great start. I want to move on to some other things. They did give a preview for the next week's episode. Actually, next week's going to be another, not a two-parter, but they're going to play 2 episodes again, which is also welcome. But the next one's Kindred is what they showed off for, and we finally get Rook back, which Thrawn fans know who Rook is. He's the Nogri kind of bodyguard, which that has an amazing story that has to do with Darth Vader. I don't know if all that's still going to fit in with the new canon, but it'll be cool to see that, because the Nogri are just this awesome race. They end up in the expanded universe. They ended up becoming really cool. Like they'd end up serving the daughter of Vader, which of course would be Princess Leia, and they'd protect her kids and everything. I don't know. It was a really cool storyline. So having Rook come back, and which we knew he would be, because that was like a password that in season 3 Thrawn had used to shut down like these things that looked effectively like dark troopers. But anyway, which that'd be fine too if we get more dark troopers. I'm all for that. So okay, let's move on to the book from a certain point of view, which was. It's getting to the point where we're getting like 2 big novels a month now. I think that's too fast. Like I said, you got From a Certain Point of View, which came out, I think, October 4th or October 3rd. And then you had The Legend of Luke Skywalker, which just came out today, October 31st. Don't overdo it, guys, okay? Kathleen at Star Wars or at Lucasfilm, don't overdo it. 1 book a month is fine. I know right now it's a hot time because you've got a movie coming out in the next couple months, but take it easy, okay? You do not want to learn from George Lucas about oversaturating a market. Don't do it. So anyway, but From a Certain Point of View was a huge book. I mean, and it was, so I normally listen to the audiobooks, and this one was a particularly large production as far as audiobooks go. They got so many big names to not only write the stories, but to perform the stories. And even some alumni of the new canon, that being like Janina Gavankar did a voice. Ashley Eckstein, who, of course, Ahsoka. Just a bunch of people that got to pull this together. And some of the authors, like, it was cool. Pablo Hidalgo wrote a book in it, or wrote a short story in it, and it was long. Most of the Star Wars novels, whether it's young adult or full on, I can listen to them in about 5 hours. Well, let's put it this way. Maybe this will say more about the book than anything. The book, or the compilation, or the anthology, I should say, From a Certain Point of View. So I think all, like, raw, if you listen to it not at 2.3x, which is what I listen to my books at, I think it's about like 15 hours, which is about 5 hours longer than any other Star Wars book. About. So this is genuinely a large book. So I listened to it at 2.3x anyway. It took me shy of the entire month to listen to this book. Now, granted, yes, I was very busy this month, and still am. But it wasn't just because I was busy. This was a hard book to slough through. I mean, it was tough because some of the shorts, there's a couple short stories that were dynamite, and there's a couple short stories that I thought were, or there's some of them that I just thought were like, oh, this is so fucking boring. I don't give 2 shits. And that's bad. Like, especially me, somebody who, really can be very forgiving with the franchises I love. I am the last person you want to be saying that what you're doing is boring. And 90% of this book is fucking boring and pointless and even stupid. And you really don't want a fan like me saying that kind of thing, because, that means it's really bad. So spoiler alerts abound here, folks. Now, there's some things I didn't, like I said, there's a couple things that were really great, but and I'm not going to talk about, there's like 40 stories in this. I'm not going to talk about all 40 of them. All right. I'm not going to review every single one, but we'll hit some of the high notes. If you want to talk about the bad, there are 2 that stand out particularly as being, well, I don't know that I want to say that. One of them is really bad. And the one that's really bad is when you find out that R5D4, which is in A New Hope. Again, this entire book, every story takes place kind of in between the scenes around A New Hope, or either a little before or a little after. All of it. Okay, so it's all centered around A New Hope. It's like, consider it a bunch of expanded scenes from A New Hope. That's what you're getting here. Okay, which is an interesting concept, and it is a concept. I get it. Like that, this is, you're taking a risk doing this sort of thing. How could this really work? And like I've said many times, I think A New Hope is the weakest Star Wars film. Doesn't mean it's not great. I'm just saying I think it's weak as far as Star Wars goes. And so anything to kind of prop that film up, I think is a very good thing. I'm glad Rogue One has done what it's done, along with so many other little things that have been going on recently in the new canon. But this is one where I think they went too far. I think they went too fucking far, and now it is really time to stop concentrating on that movie, because everything has been based around A New Hope. Stop it now, because you're killing it. Like now you're going. You were propping it up. Now you're kind of going over the hill. Okay, Lucasfilm, I'm really concerned here. So the story with R5D4, which R5D4 is the droid that has a bad motivator that gets sold to the Lars family, to Luke and Uncle Owen, right? Where the motivator explodes, and then they end up buying R2D2. So if you don't know A New Hope, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, so come to find out, spoiler alerts, R5D4 actually blew his own motivator to allow, because beforehand, while they're in the Jawa crawler, when they're in there, R2D2 and R5D4 are having this huge argument, and R2D2 is saying, look, I need to, I have to get sold. I have to get off this planet. I have to get the Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance effectively. And it's kind of weird because these droids are R2's always kind of whined, but they're having these pleading, and R2's like a real asshole, not in a cute way, in a really bad way. I mean, this story really hurt things. It is just going to make A New Hope that much more. I mean, it's not painful to watch, but for the sake of the story, it's going to be so painful to watch, knowing that, that little fucker did that on purpose to save the rebellion. I mean, it's weird. Another weird story. This is a little theme that goes throughout the whole thing, and this is very strange. Another weird story is you get a story from Aunt Beru. Now, hey, I'd love to hear a story about Aunt Beru while she's growing up. What's the trials of taking care of Luke and everything. All that would be very interesting to me. No, this is a story of her telling a story after she dies. This is her talking from the afterlife, which, I thought with Star Wars, that was supposed to be kind of a unique trick. It's unique. And in fact, the book almost contradicts itself, because there's a story about Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan in this, which I'll get to because it's another weird story. Okay, but Qui-Gon, it's made clear that wow, Qui-Gon figured out something very special. He figured out how to, talk back from the dead. But yet in this book, we have Aunt Beru telling us all this bullshit after she dies. And it just sets a strange precedent for Star Wars, there's an afterlife. And it's weird because you really kind of think Han Solo, especially in A New Hope, that he's a very rational person for being all right, this is all crap, this Force stuff, all the hokey religions and all that. And you appreciate that perspective, especially if you're an atheist like myself, but yeah, I mean, you're putting it in canon that everybody kind of exists in the afterlife. I don't know. It seemed like a weird place to go. And the audiobook didn't help either, because the person tried to emulate the way that Aunt Beru talked. And if I had to listen to old Aunt Beru talk for, more than I don't even think it's 5 minutes in The New Hope. I mean, that's bad enough. No offense to Aunt Beru or the actress that played her. She did a great job. But it's so tough to listen to. And you're just, the whole time you're just going, what the fuck? I mean, really, and she's telling this whole spiel, and that's a super strange story. That one with Aunt Beru. Again, it'd be fine if there's, tell a story about a day in the life of Aunt Beru. Hell, fuck, I'll listen to that. But to listen to her talking about shit after she's dead, yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel it, and that's a very early on story. I didn't feel it at all. It's put a bad taste in my mouth for the whole thing. So then you end up with a story where Qui-Gon And you find out that he's done this a few times, which you could kind of expect, especially after the line that Yoda delivers in episode 3, where it says, hey, Master Qui-Gon's figured out how to talk from the dead. I'm going to tell you how to talk to him. And so you would figure that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan had had conversations quite a few times. I mean, and certainly you end up with that in the, in the Clone Wars. There's points where Qui-Gon comes back as a Force ghost. But anyway, so this is another weird precedent that gets set, because Qui-Gon apparently knows, like, Qui-Gon visits Obi-Wan on Tatooine more or less during the events of A New Hope. And the whole time, Qui-Gon's talking to Obi-Wan, and he knows, somehow he knows as a Force ghost, somehow he knows that Obi-Wan's going to be joining him soon. And that, they'll be in the Force together, and he's actually looking forward to it and all this. And I think that that's weird too. Like, because then it doesn't, I mean, maybe Obi-Wan just didn't figure out how to see the future just yet. But like, that speaks against Yoda's point that always in motion is the future. And it makes Obi-Wan's kind of comments, or the way he talks to Luke when Obi-Wan is a Force ghost, saying, look, you either have to do this or he's already won, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, it all makes it very strange, that whole conversation. And it adds on more, because then there's a point where, like, there's a story, which is actually kind of good, where Obi-Wan and Yoda are arguing with each other. And, Obi-Wan's a Force ghost at this point, and they're arguing about, Obi-Wan's telling Yoda, hey, I need you to train this Skywalker. And Yoda's excited about training a Skywalker, which you would think would be odd, because it's like, wait a minute, he doesn't seem excited at all and doesn't want to do it in Empire Strikes Back when Luke lands there. But this is the thing that the book brings up, and I thought that this was kind of a fun point, a nice little twist in the story, twist in the tale, is that Yoda was hoping he'd get to train Leia, not Luke. And I think that's a great little story. Like, I thought that was cool. But again, if Force ghosts know what the fuck, who's going to die when and what's going to happen, like, doesn't Obi-Wan already know what's going to happen? Why does he even bother to tell anybody? Like, it creates almost this idea in, like, Christianity, where it's called Calvinism, where, like, everything is predetermined, or hyper Calvinism, that a lot of Christian Baptists believe. And I think that sets another really strange precedent in Star Wars. And it rubs you wrong, like, knowing that and, like, hearing that, because otherwise you would think that the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon story would have been very heartfelt, and at some points it kind of is, but it just comes off very strange. So again, this book is doing a lot more harm than good. It really, really is. I mean, like, the Yoda Leia thing, that was kind of a cool thing. I actually thought it was kind of cool. B. Arthur's character from the holiday special, she's now officially canon. I'm not saying the holiday special is, but she is, because she's a part of one of these stories. I mean, the things that happen with the bartender those were kind of fun stories. I mean, I could have lived without them, but whatever, they're there. The story with Boba Fett, I'm not pleased with how Boba Fett, like, his inner monologue is incredibly disappointing. He's really an asshole, and again, not in the cool way. He's just like this. I mean, and he's cocky, but not in the cool way. He's cocky and, like, this way too over certainty. Admittedly, the way that Boba Fett is portrayed with his inner monologue, or inner dialogue, whatever, the way that he's portrayed from a certain point of view fits very well with the character that we learn about in, the young Boba Fett that we learn about in the Clone Wars, animated series. So it fits, but it kind of kills, like, the luster of Boba Fett that we had in the 90s. And I was a huge Boba Fett fan in the 90s, and I still kind of am, even though I'm not pleased with how they're treating this guy. I don't know. That story, came off rough as well, in my opinion. We'll get to, I mean, the Yoda and Leia one was one of the good stories. As long as you can kind of forget about the whole Qui-Gon, exchange between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan earlier on. Let's see, what was the next one that was very weird. So I want to make this super clear, and I actually talked about this on the Patreon live Q&A, Hangout Q&A for this month. But there's a story that has to do with TK421, which, TK421, why aren't you at your post, right? TK421, you find out, is gay. totally cool. In fact, I think it's great. Like, yep, let's, I'm totally on board with the gay agenda. Like, really, let's have as many gay characters in fiction as we can. I'm so on board with that. What you find out is that TK42, or like through, because of this mouse droid and everything, TK421 kind of catches the eye of one Grand Moff Tarkin. And Wilhuff, that being Wilhuff Tarkin, you find out he's gay. Now, again, I really don't actually have a problem with that. The way that the story kind of plays out, though, it kills the real sinister edge and everything. Like in James Luceno's book, Tarkin, which is part of the new canon, which is one of the best books of the new canon. Like everything we've ever experienced about Tarkin never, ever hinted at I mean, yeah, okay, he's dapper and whatever. He has that, you just picture Alexander Cushing talking, and it's incredible. Okay, but you never really got the hint that he was gay. Again, no problem. That's fine. If you want to make him gay, make him gay. I don't give a shit. Okay, but like the way that he reacts, like it feels it's like a caricature of gay people that they kind of put him into with TK421, and same with TK421. And it's all supposed to kind of come off as sort of funny, and it just feels like really, it's just another story that just feels super strange, and it's canon. Like, this is a fact now. And that's what's weird, is that you had an entire fucking novel. James Luceno had the entire novel of Tarkin, and you never bring it up once that this guy's gay. It would have been great. It would have made the book even better. But like, let him have that sinister edge with it. That's okay. I don't know, that story just, it really seemed off. This is kind of like back when Mark Hamill was saying, oh, maybe Luke is gay. No, hold on. No, he's not. Okay, like, look, if that was how it was meant to be, that's fine. I don't care. All right, but there is so much like story. And like I said, I'm all for it. Like I literally wake up every morning thinking, how can I help the gay agenda? You have to understand that. Like I'm all for this. Okay, this just comes off wrong. This just doesn't feel, it really doesn't feel right. And they could have just, it would have been fine if in the story you found out that he was laying down with a dude, or, somebody like Vader walks into the room and, oh, there's a guy in Tarkin's bed. Like, that would have been cool. And it might even have been a little bit funny, but the way that they delivered it in this, it didn't feel like Tarkin. It felt very forced. And it was way, way off. It was way off base. With how you want, in my opinion, like it destroys the menacing, it destroys everything you think of the character, and not in a good way. Sometimes it's a good way to deconstruct a character, but this wasn't it. Like everything you experience in Rogue One, everything you experience in A New Hope, I mean, or everything that you experienced in the Clone Wars. I mean, it's way out of left field. It was so fucking strange. It was a bad move, in my opinion. So that stunk. The one of the stories that I thought was actually really solid was the Biggs Darklighter story, where how he's excited to see that Luke is there. That was really cool. And that actually had pulled some heartstrings. That was well done. The story with Mon Mothma, where she's thinking that, holy shit, the Death Star destroyed Alderaan. Like, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to dissolve the Empire right now, and I'm going to turn myself in. And she writes this whole speech where she says, the Rebel Alliance is dissolved. I am finished. And, just to keep another planet from getting destroyed. And that was a powerful story. That was also super well done. So again, there's little nuggets in this that are really cool and that lay out some very interesting twists and stuff. But then there's other times where there's twists and it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't work. They fucked it up, big time. I mean, they really fucked it up, or they didn't, or it just seems out of place because they had plenty of opportunity in the past, like I said with Tarkin, with an entire novel, and they just never did it. They never delivered on it. I mean, it would have made tons of sense. Anyway, so then the book ends, and this is where things are very weird. Because the book ends with the journal, a story about the Journal of the Wills, where it's some wills talking, which the Journal of the Wills, I'm not going to get into the big explanation of what that is. But like in the original 70, actually, I guess it would have been 76 when the novel came out. The original Star Wars novel by Alan Dean Foster. George Lucas. Yeah. Ghost Riders. When that came out in 76, in the opening of it, it's like telling the story that you're about to experience, that being A New Hope, is like prefaced with somebody from the future telling you, hey, like this is how this time was, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end it says it's from the Journal of the Wills. So the idea is that everything you're experiencing in Star Wars, right down to, the opening, what gets written in the opening crawl, at least that's what, according to From a Certain Point of View, is coming from the Journal of the Wills. And these two characters, these two wills, I guess, WHILLS, are like arguing with each other. And I didn't mind it so much. It just, this was comedy done wrong. Like I said, when comedy gets done right, like The Force Awakens did a phenomenal job of comedy done right. Where things were, it was laugh out loud funny. Star Wars, the original trilogy, had plenty of points that was laugh out loud funny. Even Episode 3 had the point where, Obi-Wan says to Anakin, no, that business on Kata Nemodia, doesn't count. That was hilarious, right? It really was. So, but this wasn't happening. And there's way too many attempts at jokes and funny stuff and kind of almost slapstick that it didn't exactly work. But now we know, all this stuff is in the Journal of the Wills, and I don't want to, if you want to read it, I don't want to necessarily give away what exactly some of the things that get hinted at in that, but it kind of creates some logical problems with the existence of the Star Wars universe. I'm just going to put it that way. If you want, just read that last part of the book, and you'll see what I mean. But I'm going to leave the mystery on that one. I'm going to entice you there because I want to move on. I don't want this to go over much over an hour, really. I want to move on to, what also dropped, I think it was October 9th, which was the new trailer for The Last Jedi, which we talked about a little bit also on the October Patreon Hangout live Q&A. So I watched this trailer and it doesn't do anything for me. I'm not saying it was bad. The visuals are great. There's nothing technically wrong with it. Two things. There is one thing wrong with it, but I'm not going to say there's something wrong with it. I'm just saying it didn't tell me anything. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go see a pretty film. Like it's kind of disappointing because, look, you don't even need a trailer. If you just suddenly say, hey, there's going to be a Star Wars movie coming out next week, you're going to do whatever. You're going to do a $300 million opener. You don't have to worry about it, and you're going to do billions. It doesn't matter. It's fucking Star Wars. Okay, you really don't need to prime people for this shit. I think where it's a bad idea on Lucasfilm's part to do this. First off, like any other movie, Star Wars is an anomaly, no doubt, in a good way. Okay. But any other movie, you have to give us something of what the fuck this movie's about. You've got to give us something. You get nothing. You have no idea what this movie's about. And, you got the teaser trailer, which that didn't really tell us what anything was about either, but the presentation and just seeing some scenes and everything, like that was good enough then. All right. But now when you're supposed to be getting a full on trailer, like we did with The Force Awakens actually kind of explained what was going to be going down. You got an idea of things. You get no idea of what the fuck is happening here. In fact, you get a lot of misdirection, and it's misdirection because just this past week, they also released the international trailer, which had a couple new shots in it, a couple new scenes that we hadn't seen. But in the international trailer, they recut things to where you saw that, like, where it was hinting at the idea in the new official trailer, not the international one for The Last Jedi, but we were talking about The Last Jedi, if I didn't make that clear. I assume you knew that, but whatever. The Last Jedi, in the original trailer that came out on October 9th, it looked like Kylo Ren was about to, like, kill his mom, while flying in a starfighter. But then the way it's cut in the international version of the trailer for The Last Jedi that just came out last week, they're two completely different scenes. And this raises a few questions, okay? So first off, one problem within Lucasfilm, within the Star Wars franchise itself here, is that if you're having all these prequels and side stories and everything going on, it really behooves you to be super clear when the fuck and where the fuck this movie is happening. So having vague trailers with just a bunch of pretty a bunch of pretty scenes is a fail, in my opinion. Now, granted, the Rogue One trailer also did an excellent job of saying exactly what story was happening and whatever. But I think you should do this for all of the movies. Okay, give us fucking something, please. And you really get no idea, or not anything more than what the teaser trailer showed anyway. And the music was inferior in this to what the teaser trailer. Like, I still watch it, at least once a week, and because the music that plays during that, I just get so hyped up. This did not deliver on that end. But regardless, yes, again, some very pretty scenes going on here. But this raises a huge question, not just with Star Wars, but with trailers in general. We exist in a time where the concept. I know a trailer is supposed to try and hook you and get you into the movie anyway. But originally, a trailer was really just an advertisement letting you know that it's coming. Yeah, it's supposed to kind of hook you. But now they're gaming trailers, effectively, to where we gotta, do whatever it takes to get as many people in. And you could say that that's good business. But at the same time, I don't think it's good business. I don't think the idea of, we got to do whatever we can to hook people in to come into the theaters, it's getting to the point where it's false advertising. And if I were not an anarchist, there's a lot of movies I'd be suing. Like, I'd literally be suing the movie studios. I'd be saying, you sold me a false bill of goods, because like one of the big quote unquote reveals, or at least what people think is a reveal, of course, after analysis of the trailer, it seems pretty clear that these are two very separate scenes, is at the end of the Last Jedi trailer, it looks like Rey is going to join Kylo Ren, either to the dark side or whatever, which I am all for, and I hope it happens. I hope Rey goes to the dark side. I want that so badly, you have no idea. Okay. And Kylo can go to the light side. That's fine. I don't care. I don't need good guys. I want bad girls. I don't need bad guys. I want bad girls. And the whole world can have good guys, because good guys end up dying off anyway. So it makes it look like that's happening. But what if that doesn't happen? Like, I would, they're going to have to pay that tease. I almost think it has to happen now, because otherwise people are going to be like, hey, what the fuck? The trailer, it looked like in the trailer that's what was going to happen. When does it become false advertising? And usually with false advertising, that is grounds for legal recourse. So this is a really serious issue. I know we're just talking about Star Wars here, but in all seriousness, for a lot of people in the world, putting their money down, doing whatever they do, especially like if you live in New York City, there's times you could be end up paying $40 for a movie or something. And you can say, well, you're going to take them to small claims, but still, the principle is the thing here. And I think a lot of movies today are engaging in false advertising, and that is, I think you got to be careful with that. I think that's crap. And you can watch the classic Star Wars trailers. You don't need to play those hooks. Like I said, it's Star Wars. People are going to go see it. Don't worry. And you can tell them what's going on with the story and everything. And trust me, they're going to go see it. But yeah, so there's nothing wrong necessarily with the trailer. Not really. It just didn't excite me. Like it didn't hype me up any further, as to where I remember when the full trailer. Well, I remember when the teaser trailer for Force Awakens came out, and it shows the Falcon going up, and they blast the John Williams and everything. That was great. But when the full trailer for, I still listen to even just the music, and I can quote the full trailer for the Force Awakens. It was such an amazing trailer, and it gave you enough of what's going to be going on and what to expect, and it didn't bullshit you. Like, in no way did it bullshit you. I don't think there was any really clever cuts that went on. Nothing like that. They did a phenomenal job as far as that goes. So, yeah, this is disappointing. Just to me. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. It's actually, like, by most standards, I guess it's a great trailer. I'm just saying, for me, it's disappointing. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't excite me. I watched it like twice, and I watched it just before I recorded this. And that's all I've watched it. As to where the teaser trailer, I've watched that over and over and over and over and over again. And the Force Awakens trailer, I still watch it to this day. So many trailers for Star Wars, I still watch to this day. The Episode 1 trailer, the trailer for the special editions. Those are masterworks of film on their own. And this just wasn't. It's a totally forgettable trailer. There's no great lines in it. And that the end scene between Kylo and Rey is that's not matching up. Like, that's kind of bullshit. It might end up becoming a reality. Like, the abstract idea of her joining Kylo might happen, but it's kind of bullshit. At least as it's presented. So that's pretty disappointing. Anyway, so yeah, that's my thoughts on the trailer. And with from a certain point of view, I'm sure The Last Jedi is going to be great. With a lot of the news coming out about the Han Solo movie, and I'm almost to the point where I don't listen to Star Wars news anymore. I still listen to Star Wars podcasts. I still listen to Collider's Jedi Council. I listen to Resist the Empire podcast. I listen to those all the, anytime there's a new episode. But like, I'm not actively like looking at the Star Wars news because it all seems bad. Like everything that's going, oh, this person got fired. Oh, this person's not returning. Oh, this person's, this actor can't fit in, whatever. And it all just seems like really strange. I don't know what the fuck is happening over at Lucasfilm. One person, a good friend, actually posited the idea to me that, not Feige, Bob Iger. Sorry, I think I said Feige earlier, not Kevin Feige, but Bob Iger is stepping in and taking creative control of Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy is not actually in charge. I could almost believe that, because the way that there's been so many 180s of what's going on in Star Wars and so much other strange shit that's been happening, as to where Kathleen Kennedy really seemed to have a very focused vision and had great ideas of what was going on and everything. Yeah, it almost feels like that there was some kind of coup in management. And I mean, Bob Iger's, the ultimate boss, with Disney and everything. So, you can't really argue with him, but it feels like a coup at Lucasfilm, I guess I'll say. And I'm worried, especially with like the book From a Certain Point of View and some of the other areas that they're really concentrating on. Not digging it. Even like, I think it's weird that Rebels is only going to season 4. Somehow I think that was a command from on high and it wasn't Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe it's to get Filoni freed up to do other things and he couldn't concentrate on the show as much as he wanted to. Sure, I could believe that, but yeah, I don't know. I'm very concerned over the future of Star Wars. I'm concerned about how many books are coming out a month. I'm concerned about, a lot of the choices that are being made, not just merchandising wise, like, movie wise. I mean, like, because suddenly there's announcement that there's going to be a Jabba the Hutt movie. There's going to be all these, and I'm like, who the hell? Like, who thinks that these are good ideas? And they haven't earned it yet, especially with all of the, major shakeups that happen in the production of like the side story films and everything. They haven't earned it yet to where we can be confident enough that when they say they want to make a movie about Ponda Baba, all right, and they didn't say that, but you get my point. Or if they're going to make a movie about, life on Ithor or something, that I'm going to, with full confidence, say, oh, well, that's going to be great. Go for it. That sounds weird to me, but sure, you people have a great track record. You do it. They don't have that. And so I think like making a lot of these crazier claims is an absolute mistake. Like, I mean, and I think somebody, and I don't think it's Kathleen Kennedy because she's a smart woman. I think somebody stepped in. I mean, I could believe that theory that that Bob Iger or whoever is stepping in and is changing shit up on the fly, and it's not cool. The comic books are also getting very weird. I mean, like, and there's not enough connection and payoff to the broader canon, to the novels and the comics and everything else that's going on. I mean, it's still like, from a certain point of view, I talked about in the last Star Wars update how this is really like Jewish midrash, like how you explain the oddities in Torah. This is kind of what they're doing. But I mean, it's overkill now. So much of it is just strange overkill, and a lot of the comics are not hitting. And the comics, I would think, are the most important property because they were the most important property in a very real sense for Star Wars in the 90s. Tales of the Jedi, Dark Empire, Crimson Empire, all of that. It's feeling like a lot of missteps going on. Now, I mean, the one piece of good news we have is that I think next year, I think it is, 2018, that we're going to get another Thrawn book. Awesome. Sign me up. Let's go. Timothy Zahn's writing in. It's going to be Thrawn and Vader. Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm so on board for that. But there should be a lot more that I can look forward to, and there really isn't. There really isn't. And they're not. Battlefront 2 is coming out. We'll be talking about that in November. I'll be doing my review of that. I did play the multiplayer beta, and I reviewed that. I won't go over it again here, but I reviewed that on the Patreon live Q&A. That was, that I enjoyed it. I thought it felt solid. It felt good, and I'm looking forward to playing the game. I already have it pre-ordered when it comes out in November. So anyway, they should be doing more with gaming. They really should. Like, there should be space sims already. There's a lot of things, a lot of irons that they could be striking while they are very, very hot. And they're not doing it. So, and I don't know why. Someone's making some very poor business decisions, in my opinion, and they're not tightening up the ship. The ship's very leaky, to put it mildly. So there you have it. There's your Star Wars update. We talked it all up. Boy, that from a certain point of view, there's a couple stories in there worthwhile. But boy, if you didn't read the whole thing, I don't blame you, because it almost ruins A New Hope, even more so than, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of that movie, but it really just makes it far, far worse. Once you know what's like the motivations behind everything, and when you know so much about a lot of the different little characters. And I know some people said, well, it was like Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina. Yeah, but Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina felt kind of special. And like the story with the Tanika sisters and, Hammer Tongue and whatever. I mean, like all of those things, like they seemed to fit. They felt all right. Even the story about Boba Fett was very exciting from Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, because it supposedly at the time, of course we find out it wouldn't, but it would reveal kind of more of his history. I mean, there were things in there that there was information. It wasn't information overkill. It was telling you things that you didn't know that you wanted to know at the time. It's where, from a certain point of view, just takes it way too far. It's telling you details that's too much detail. And I mean, and that's really possible. You don't need to be in the head of the guy with the, with that, what is it, elephant mask or whatever his name, or elephant, whatever his name is on there. You don't need to know it. Or like the Dianaga in the trash compactor on board the Death Star. Like, it has kind of a tragic story. It's a Force user. It's like, what the hell? Like, how did Luke and Leia not really know? Whatever. It didn't answer these things. Like, one of the things that this book should have talked about is, did Vader, I mean, because this is one of the big mysteries, and of course it's because George Lucas didn't really have a plan. He made this up as he went along. But one of the things it should have touched on was, hey, did Vader sense that Leia was, his daughter, was a Force user? No. I mean, they were, 6 inches away from each other. What the fuck? I mean, you can't get any more point blank than that. Why didn't that happen? It would have been interesting to explore that, but they didn't bother. Like, they just answered a whole ton of bullshit, like R5-D4 blowing his own goddamn motivator for the rebellion. Okay. I mean, that doesn't raise a whole bunch of slave species questions, when it comes to when they can consciously choose to blow their own motivators. I mean, you just created like a huge ethical issue with the use of droids by every human. I mean, pretty much every human in Star Wars that has a droid is a piece of shit. I mean, I guess other than Rey, because Rey treats them like human beings, which, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of underlying tale that they're trying to get to with that. And of course, there was that weird comic book with C-3PO about how he got his red arm, and kind of the droids are being very existential. Maybe that's something they're going to run with in the future, because otherwise right now, humans are pieces of shit in that galaxy based upon, when you consider it, like, oh, sure, let's make these machines that just off themselves for us. Anyway, or these very, what seemingly conscious, and machines with agency, to where they can blow their own motivators. It wasn't a problem before, because I figured it had a mechanical failure like a machine does. Now, no, fuck, it decided to do that. Weird. Anyway, I think Star Wars is in a little bit of trouble. I'm not going to, lay down the hard verdict yet, but, well, we'll talk again in November, and then, what's coming. Last Jedi in December, baby. I'll be all over it. So, other content, actually, there's going to be pretty much content every day this week. I will see you on the other side. Woo!